Hi, everyone, and welcome to Val Talks Pets, the forum for pet parents and enthusiasts alike. Having been in the pet industry for almost 10 years now, I am going to share with you issues and questions that arise as I work with pet parents on a day-to-day basis. I am not a veterinarian, but I do have certifications in canine, feline, small animal, fish and reptile, and avian health and nutrition from the University of California, Davis Extension. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Val Talks Pets. On my last episode, I explored some of the main complementary supplements we can give to our pets. There are so many things to explore with this topic, so I have with me the perfect person to take this topic even further. With me on this episode is Joanne Carr, Registered Holistic Nutritionist and Director of OASIS and Bilingual Communications with Omega Alpha Pharmaceuticals. Joanne, welcome to Val Talks Pets.
Thank you, Val. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thanks so much. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about right away is, what is OASIS?
OASIS. Well, OASIS is an acronym for Omega Alpha Scientific Institute of Supplements. So what it boils down to is all about the scientific research that supports our formulation. And it is our education department at Omega Alpha. Mm-hmm. So we educate ongoing retailers, consumers, really to empower people to make better decisions about purchasing supplements for their pets.
Oh, I see. Okay. You know what? I don't even know why I didn't know that, but I do now. So that's great. So, basically with Omega Alpha, how did they get started? And, how long have they been helping humans and horses and pets? And, how did this all come about?
Well, we are, since 1992, Dr. Gordon Chang is the CEO and the chief formulator of all three product lines. So back in 1992, he opened his doors for the first time, and he wanted to make supplements that were consistent with it. The name of the company is Omega Alpha Pharmaceuticals. We manufacture herbal supplements, but he wanted to hold the formulations to the adhere to the strict guidelines of pharmaceuticals. So this is why we are called Omega Alpha Pharmaceuticals, because of the strict adherence to those guidelines. He wanted to have something out there that was of the best quality, really.
Awesome. So that's how he did it. So did he start with human stuff or horses?
It was humans first, and then it was equine, and then pets were last. Sorry, the dogs and cats out there for any of you listening, but eventually we got to the pets or the companion animals.
Right. Okay. So 1992.
Yes, it's been a while. It's going to be 30 years next year.
Yikes. That is, yeah. And so hopefully you'll be having a big celebration of 30 years in business.
Yes, absolutely. We plan on doing a lot of great marketing stuff and just, keeping on and doing the best we can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you said Dr. Chan. Now, is he solely does the formulations, or is there expanded on that now?
Dr. Chang basically is in conversation with other health practitioners, nutritionists, veterinarians, both the conventionally trained veterinarians, which they all are, and of course holistic veterinarians as well. Mm-hmm. So he does speak with other health practitioners in this industry. So
he's still overseeing all of the formulations then?
He definitely is.
Oh, so he's very hands-on?
Very much so.
Okay. You mentioned holistic veterinarians, and that's a good thing, but you are a registered holistic nutritionist, correct?
I am, yes.
So maybe you can define what that is and then how that relates to pets in that line that you have.
I'd be happy to do that. A holistic nutritionist basically takes what we call an integrated holistic look at the whole person. So when I received my diploma, I believe it was over 20 years ago now, it was all about human health for me. I gradually made the transition into the equine and the pet worlds as well, but it's all about looking at mind, body, and spirit. So the collective holistic approach and examines a person on a unique and individual basis, basically, and offer recommendations really to help them with their own health issues and help them achieve optimal health.
Right. I see that. Now, you mentioned about the holistic veterinarians. What sort of separates them from a veterinarian who's not a holistic veterinarian? I know, looking in terms of the pet as a whole, are they adding on the holistic nutrition to their practice, or what is it that they're doing?
Val, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what they do. So all veterinarians, as you know, they all start off going through their conventional training, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then for those who want to add on or take a more holistic approach, they will go out on their own and they will take various courses, whether it's acupuncture or massage, or they will look into even homeopathy. So there's all of these different areas where they can even go out on their own and learn different things to really bring more to the table, so to speak.
I see. That's one of the things, was mentioned in that last episode that I had done. One of the things that I found interesting is how some vets will embrace the whole holistic approach. And as I mentioned in my episode, when I was dealing with our dog, I said, this is what I'm doing with the supplements, etc. And he said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because this dog's doing very well in recovery. And I thought, that's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of vet that, maybe he doesn't have the extra holistic nutritionist add on to his practice, but at least he was completely open to me doing it.
I couldn't agree more with you, Val, because we hear stories all the time about how people will take their pets to the vet, and some vets will just kind of say, well, that's all hocus pocus, or whatever their answer will be. But the response that you got from your veterinarian is a wonderful response, because ultimately at the end of the day, they want to improve the health of the animal. And I think that is wonderful, even though they don't understand it per se. Mm-hmm. At least they're willing to at least acknowledge it. They're seeing an improvement. So that is wonderful feedback.
Yeah. And that's, when I talk to people about that and they say, I'm like, well, you'll have to speak to your vet and you may get pushback. But you may not, but if you do, there's always resources to help you. And you can certainly take that to your vet to help you work together, for, as you said, the well-being of your pet, the whole pet,
I think that's great advice when you're speaking with pet owners, because they have choices to make, and if they have an arsenal of different options, we're really helping them make a more educated decision, really.
Yeah, you're right. It is like an arsenal of things, things that we can add on, and, whatever's going on, if we can have some more tools in our toolbox,
Absolutely. I love that analogy. And I've interviewed veterinarians over the years, and, they seem to say the same thing. It just gives them more tools for their tool belt. So that is an excellent analogy for that.
So what do you think's happening now? Do you find that the market is building with regards to pet parents, embracing more natural supplements? Is it building, do you find?
Oh, it is indeed a movement towards embracing natural supplements. I've seen that, and thankfully, and I love what I do, and being in the industry for, at least with the pet industry now, and dealing with this for as many years as I have seen an exponential rise in pet owners looking for more natural options. And not to say that, we never suggest, they take their pet off a medication, but they're looking for other options and things that they can be used maybe short-term or long-term, that's going to be considered more of a maintenance or a support supplement, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was thinking, I started, when I was talking about this, I thought, we'll go with the one that everybody seems to have embraced so far, hip and joint, right? And then go from there, because, at the beginning, how many people thought about that for their pets? But now people think about that almost regularly, especially when they have large dogs.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, too, that you mentioned, you started off in talking about hip and joint was a great place to start, because you also, from the veterinarian standpoint, glucosamine is something that they're all aware of. And it's not something look down at and say, oh, no, that doesn't work. There's a lot more research to support glucosamine being very safe and effective for cats and dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we know it's becoming more mainstream. And so, yeah, it just takes time, right?
Absolutely. And that's another thing I know we're going to probably get to a question about that. It's about patience and going through, because with medications, they work very quickly. With natural supplements, it takes a little bit of time before pet owners will see improvement. So as long as they're educated about that, their expectations will also be realistic.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things too, is pet parents realize these are not drugs. It's not going to work in a one-off. And you have to be more patient to allow the animal's body to start to use this product, support it, see where it's going with it.
And, the question you asked about being a holistic nutritionist and, how it relates to pets, and we look at each animal individually because, every pet has had a different health experience. They're different ages, they're different breeds. And we look at a holistic nutritionist, or where this has helped me in the field of pet health, is looking at what are the stressors in that animal's environment. Is it an environmental thing? Is it diet that's causing stress? Is it physical activity, medications? There could be a number of reasons, but there's a lot of similarities when we look, because they're mammals as well as us. So, we see so many similarities there.
Yeah, that's true. And exactly the same thing, just as humans, we go out looking for things that we can help with our health, but we may not have been thinking that we can do the same thing with our pets.
Very true. And, there are some, even though there are natural ingredients or natural supplements, doesn't mean that the product is necessarily safe for cats and dogs. You'd hate to see a lot of pet owners think, well, I've got this product here that I take. I'll just reduce the dose and give it to my cat and everything should be completely fine. But that's not always the case.
Right. Yeah. Let's first talk about some of I know that like in the Omega Alpha formulas, there's so many amazing herbs and botanicals in there. So where do a lot of these botanicals and herbs come from? And then how do you quality control them? Because as you said, Dr. Chan is making sure that he's really on top and wants to all be really quality controlled. How do you do that?
Well, this is a question that we are getting more and more and more frequently because pet owners are very well educated. They do a lot of research. They, not only on pet foods, but of course supplements and other things. And so they're coming to us with all these very valid questions, and I'm sure they are coming to you as well. But to answer your question, Val, we source our ingredients worldwide. And our herbs, I'm going to be completely transparent here because some of our herbs do come from Asia. And I will talk a little bit about that shortly. But we do get our ingredients from all over the world. So yes, Asia, Canada, of course. We do get our ginseng is a Canadian source, the U.S. as well. But what we do is we receive all of our herbal ingredients in a whole form. So it's not in a powdered form. And the reason we do that is because when it's powdered, it's harder to verify the herb in question. But when we get it in a whole form, we can visually verify that herb. But we also do a lot of testing in-house because we do have a laboratory in our office in Toronto. So we do a lot of testing and we send everything out for third-party testing. So quality, safety, efficacy, that's all very important to us as a company.
I see. So do you have like a bunch of people walking around in lab coats in there?
Well, we do have one specific. We actually have two, including Dr. Chang. We have another research scientist that does a lot of our testing, and we have what we call an HPLC machine, which is an acronym for High Performance Liquid Chromatography. Try saying that 10 times fast. It's taken me hard enough just to say that once.
Seriously.
And what that machine basically does in a nutshell is it fingerprints each herb that we use and verifies its identity. And so, again, it's very important when we're looking at standardized herbs and keeping things working and maintaining the same level of standardization. That is one of the best types of machines that you can use for basically fingerprinting each of these herbs that come in.
Wow, that's really amazing. That's interesting. Wow. You mentioned about Asia. You wanted to say something about that.
Yes, I do. When it comes in and talking about being transparent, We get a lot of questions about, people are concerned about what's going on over in China, or asking us if we do get our herbs from there, because they're concerned about, quality and
Mm-hmm.
things like that,
Sure.
and toxins and all of these types of things. But because we've had business relationships for these suppliers for, well, as long as Dr. Chang has been in business, basically almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very trusted, long-standing business relationships that we have with our suppliers in Asia. And of course, because of testing, all the ingredients and finished products are tested for pesticides, heavy metals, as per Health Canada regulations. And all finished products are tested for microbial contamination as well, as per Health Canada regulations, because we are a manufacturing site, and we adhere to all of these very stringent Health Canada regulations.
Aha, that makes so much more sense. And I'm sure that when someone's asking you about that and you explain that, that makes them feel a lot better about things.
It does, and we are going to, and this is what we educate on, but we are always going to find some people who may not find that sufficient enough and may not choose to purchase our supplements.
Sure.
But at least we're letting them know that yes, we are getting them from Asia, and they are. I think the most important thing here is the testing, because I think that's another thing that's very important when you're looking at a supplement for pets, is that testing is involved, and especially with the microbial, the testing like that, heavy metals, because we know that there are toxins out there in the environment, and we actually have products that do actually help with that. But at the same time, we want to start at a good place, and let everyone know that we are on this level playing field. We're not hiding anything.
Right. That's and then of course obviously that just stands to the quality of your product and your company, right? So yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You have so many different types of supplements and things, and we know that there's the vitamins, we know that there's the hip and joint, things like that, but you also do more specialized type supplements. And I'm more familiar with kidney tone and liver tone, but you might have some others. But because these are more specific, how do these actually work? And is there other ones that I'm not quite aware of?
That is a very valid question, because, when people embark upon this journey with their pets and they're trying to find the right supplement, again, the research goes into it, and there's some things that we've talked about. I know we will talk about more, but we do have specific, organ-specific cleansing supplements like kidney tone and liver tone. And you mentioned in your talk on Friday about looking for specific ingredients, and the names of the products that we make basically give the pet owner an idea of what the product is for. So right there, it's pretty straightforward there. But, I find the cleansing, when we talk about supporting healthy cleansing and detoxification, I find of all topics that we look at or discuss, I find that creates the most fear, I think, in pet owners. So I want to talk about that, because I think and a lot of pet owners maybe haven't even used cleansing products themselves, let alone try to give them to their pets. So there's that fear that's always kind of hanging over their heads, because it's they're dealing with the unknown. What's going to happen to my cat if I start to give kidney tone? What are the things that I should watch out for? So I think if we educate pet owners, there'll be less fear surrounding these types of formulations.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of that because you are being more, as you said, organ specific, that's when you start to move into that place like, oh, I don't know about that. How does that work? Yeah, there's a little bit of trepidation in there, because I do have experience pretty good with the kidney tone, as I've mentioned quite often, because one of my cats is in stage 3 renal. And so I've been giving that to her, and so far she hasn't had to go on medication. We keep the vet, we testing to see how she's doing. And he's like, well, we don't need to do it yet. She's doing fine. She's stable, and that's all we can do. We can't go backwards. We can only arrest it for a while. That's it. But that's true is when I do recommend them, I try and tell, well, this is my experience with it. This is what I find.
That is a great example, and I think that I know the pet owners that talk to you, or that you are speaking with at any given time. That can alleviate the fears, knowing that you yourself have used it on your pets. And I think that is very helpful in alleviating fears. And another thing I'd like to say too is that they're very gentle. And when I say that they're gentle, it doesn't mean that they're ineffective. It means that you won't have a cat that's experiencing really extreme side effects, or a dog for that matter, either with either of the kidney or liver tone supplements. And I really like that because it's not purging. And herbs, even though they're natural, there are purging herbs out there on the market. But we don't use purging herbs in our cleansing formulas. We don't use purging herbs in any of our formulas for pets because nobody wants to see their pet in distress. It's hard enough when they're ill or under the weather, and then if you add a supplement, and especially when you look at a product like, well, either one of them, because kidney tone is a natural diuretic, so a cat or a dog will be urinating more frequently, and there may be accidents in the home due to that, and that can be stressful for pets and for pet owners alike. And same with the liver tone. Bowel movements, maybe they might be a little bit looser initially, but as long as the pet owner knows that, the cat will be urinating more with the kidney tone and will be visiting the litter box a little bit more, the dog will be asking to get out. These are some of the things that pet owners like to understand before they actually embark upon these types of cleansing formulas for their pets.
Yeah, and would you say that these formulas actually not only cleanse, but they also support in tone? Because right in the name, kidney tone.
Absolutely, Val, right on. You're keeping me on my toes, that's for sure. Absolutely, yes, toning and supporting or strengthening exactly what you just mentioned. And it's that's another thing with the supplements is that every supplement that is manufactured by or every formula that we have is going to control inflammation. So whether it's an herb or a vitamin or a mineral, there's always going to be something in that formula that's going to be targeting some type of inflammatory process.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because there's obviously something going on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes, you get questions about things that, sometimes you can't answer them. And I'm not 100% sure if there's always something that can be given as a supplement to help certain pets. Actually, I have two. One that happened specifically today, but I'll mention the other one, which is they do ask a lot about cats and crystals. And yeah, we do get that. I know the vets like to go at it from a food source. Let's get this food to prevent crystals from happening again. But I always think, if it's me, yeah, great, that's fine. But I would be doing this as well by adding the kidney tone in there.
And the diet is essential with regards to any health issue. I always look to nutrition as a definite link because what people are feeding their pets daily could either be helping or hindering their ability to get better, really. And I think when you talk about the crystals, the kidney tone is an excellent option for those people who have cats or dogs that are, develop crystals, struvite crystals. Yep. Whatever the case might be, it is definitely something that's going to help. There's actually some herbs in the kidney tone that actually help to break down the stones, or the calculi, they call it amongst practitioners, but they actually help to break down the stones to a degree that they can be passed. But that's part of what the kidney tone will do. So yes, I highly recommend it for an animal with crystals.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I always say, if it were me and I had that issue, by all means, get the food that works with that. But this is what I would be doing on the other side as well. I'd be doing that to help. Same thing, break down, prevent, that kind of thing, for sure.
Yes. Absolutely. And I know you were talking about how the products work. So when
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at specifically liver tone and kidney tone,
Mm-hmm.
these products aren't only not, they're not just going to gently cleanse or eliminate toxins and, of course, tone the organs in question. They work because the herbs will help increase blood flow. So this is how the products actually work. There's
Oh.
increased blood flow,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps to send more oxygen and nutrients to the kidneys and liver specifically. And of course, that will help to eliminate the toxins or expedite their release from the organs. And of course, they get out into the bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the kidney tone, they will be released through the urine. And then for the liver tone, it's either out through the skin or out through when they have a bowel movement.
Okay. I see. That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, because that's I'm thinking, how do these actually work? But they do. So that's really information that's really valuable. One of the other things too, and then actually I don't even really know if we can answer this particular one, but we are getting a lot of pets. This is more, I've noticed this a lot recently. How many times people come in and say that their pet has been diagnosed with pancreatitis? I would say 5 years ago, you never heard this. But in the last 5 years, I hear this at least once or twice a month.
Yes, we are getting that question. We've been getting that as well. I think it's very similar here with both yourself and what we are hearing, what we're getting question-wise. And pancreatitis, and I always say whenever you see itis tacked onto the end of any word, it always means there's inflammation. So, and there's always inflammation surrounding any health issue, really. But we do, and there's one product particularly that's very targeted. Actually, there's two I could talk about. Liver tone is one of them. But let me talk about the probiotic 8 Plus is, I think is one of I would call that a staple product for pet owners just to keep your pet healthy on a daily basis, maintain health, target the digestive system. With pancreatitis, as you know, it's inflammation of the pancreas. Mm-hmm. So all about, looking at supporting through adding digestive enzymes and probiotics, and that's what probiotic 8 Plus contains, amongst others. Sometimes, unfortunately, when we look at, we look at antioxidants as well, and the herbals, and there's antioxidants in all of our formulas. They're going to help control inflammation and get things under control there. But with the liver tone, it's all about supporting. The liver is an organ that helps aid in digestion as well. So supporting the liver can be instrumental in also helping an animal that suffers with pancreatitis. But I think the very targeted supplement is the probiotic 8 Plus.
Okay. That's actually, I didn't think the answer was going to be quite as easy as that.
Sometimes we're kind of like, well, wipe our brow, phew, that one. But that, again, we've learned through the multitude of questions surrounding this particular health issue.
I wonder why this has escalated the way it has.
Well, it could be very much about the diet, because when we're looking at the dietary factors play a big role in animals that do tend to develop pancreatitis. It could be a diet that's higher in fat, or maybe it's not the best quality. And I'm going to talk about that as well this afternoon, because we're seeing dogs and cats. We never heard of it, as of course you mentioned earlier. Pancreatitis, we never heard about this 10 years ago or more. We're starting to hear about it more and more, and unfortunately, dogs and cats are developing the same health issues that we are. We're starting to see, a lot of pet owners are saying, oh, cats and dogs can develop diabetes. Yes. Pancreatitis. Yes, there's another one.
Yeah, that's true. And some are insulin dependent. I think cats tend to be more insulin dependent than dogs do. So it seems to be more, cats get more type 1 diabetes and dogs more type 2.
Yes, I agree. Definitely.
Yeah. So, what do you do with a cat? What do you do when you're dealing with that?
Well, that is something with insulin specifically. That is something, we would treat insulin as a medication, of course, when we're we're looking, but you have to be, that would be very much of a following or giving a particular diet, because the diet again will be, low in carbohydrates, some proteins in there. Being careful with pancreatitis, it's more about watching the amount of fat that goes in to the diet and limiting that, and just, controlling that inflammation, providing those enzymes and probiotics. I think you really help animals. And just to manage this health issue.
Yeah, I just had a thought about raw food diets, and I'm not sure if that would be correct for a dog.
That is.
But does that work?
Let's look at that, because that's a very good question.
Okay.
We talk to more and more pet owners that are feeding raw or cooking food for their pets, or choosing even the packaged foods. Even packaged foods, kibbled foods for pets are much better quality nowadays than we were seeing 5 to 10 years ago. And I'm sure you've seen that and probably talked about that as well. But it's all about, controlling inflammation. And if you're feeding a diet that is considered more of an anti-inflammatory diet, or a diet that doesn't congest the liver. So we're looking at, products that, contain, proteins as some of the top labeled ingredients and formulas, and reducing the carbohydrate intake, because carbohydrates can also lead to weight gain and can lead to, they're considered pro-inflammatory or creating more inflammation. We have to look at an anti-inflammatory type of a diet for an animal dealing with any type of inflammatory health issue. So raw foods, yes, looking at raw foods providing enzymes. If you feed raw vegetables, for example, they contain enzymes naturally occurring that are going to help dogs and cats, for those who will consume them, to provide more naturally occurring enzymes for them to help digest their foods better.
Wow, that's really interesting. Although I'll never get Tundra to eat raw carrots, because we tried to fool him once thinking it was a cheesy, and he was like, I don't think so.
You know what? As I say, easier said than done, because, we can talk about this till the cows come home, so to speak. But then when it goes to actually doing it, it's another story.
Yeah,
but
totally.
We can, this is another thing that we talk about too, is how to get the animals to take our supplements.
Yeah, that's a really good question. What do you suggest?
Well, with the liquids, most animals do like the taste of our products. Now, cats tend to be more finicky than dogs do, we find, for the most part. But we do suggest maybe mixing products into, peanut butter or almond butter or yogurt, or maybe applesauce, bone broth, things like that. We've had pet owners that have tried everything and said, well, we find that, applesauce works, or, cats will walk by it 10 times before they, you can just picture a cat walking by the dish, just sticking their nose up at it, potentially. And then eventually they will come to, eat it. But sometimes we have to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, sometimes that's true. And I know that's one of the things, like especially powders. I tried to introduce one of the powders into Tundra's food, and he was like not going to have it. And he was just like, no. But you could put, I've put liver tone in his, and kidney tone, I've put it in his food. No problem. So you're right. The liquids work better. But I'll be honest, when I give the cat her kidney tone, I actually use a dropper.
And that's another option too. If you've tried everything and you're at your wit's end, definitely a dropper is definitely the way to go. But mixing, for the ease of administration for those pet owners who, their pet will consume anything, you can just mix these liquids or powders in with dry or wet food. What I would suggest if you're feeding a kibbled food is that you moisten it before you add any of our powdered supplements, just because it's going to maybe potentially maybe cause a tickle or aggravate the throat going down, so they might cough a bit. It all depends on the animal, but
of course.
just for ease of administration, I would suggest just mixing it in with one of our liquids, as you've already done. So you seem to have found an answer for yourself, for your dog anyway, and the dropper for your cat. So these are different things that we will have to kind of figure out, and every animal is different. So it may just be that, this particular animal will need to have it mixed in with a syringe, or maybe you'll just have to mix it in with a broth or something like that, just to provide some options there.
Yeah, I think the bone broth is a really good option. I also use goat's milk. Is there
excellent.
anything?
That is a wonderful idea.
There's nothing contraindicated then between any supplements with like something like that?
Not at all. We
Okay.
don't. The only time we have contraindications would be for medications.
Okay.
But for that, it's definitely it's a go for the goat's milk or anything like that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, because I find that a lot of dogs really do like goat's milk.
That is something, if you don't mind, I'm going to add to some of my presentations, my webinars that I do. Thank you for that idea.
Tundra's a weird dog. He likes to eat rabbit poo, but that's one thing. But his digestion goes off, and then he has these days where he's like, his stomach is making all kinds of weird gurgly noises, and he won't eat. But I start putting the goat's milk in, and that helps a lot. So that's one way.
Excellent. When you think about too, with dogs especially, because they can, as you say, especially with the husky or the husky mixes, go off their food or just not be eating. And I think that's where Tundra especially could be a perfect candidate for the probiotic 8+.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about that as we were talking, and I did put him on that when he was in recovery from his medication that he had from blastomycosis. And I'm thinking, I wonder why I didn't revisit that. But yeah, that's something to I should probably be thinking about. You did mention about medication contradictions. Is there anything like that?
Well, we normally suggest, and this is where I highly suggest, and you mentioned earlier, you can call into our office. We have a toll-free number on all of the bottles. So, in our literature, so if anybody's at home and they have the bottle there, you'll see that toll-free number. And we have very well-educated people at the office that can help you answer any product questions. Now, what I do is Dr. Chang, who I mentioned earlier in the talk this afternoon, we have people that can go directly to him. A lot of people will come to me, but there's always someone who will be able to help. With regards to medications, we normally suggest to give our supplements at least 2 to 3 hours away from any medications, just to be. Now, if this animal is on a whole bunch of different medications and, this is something that's over my head, I would definitely speak with Dr. Chang about it before I would give an answer like that. And it's always best to be safe than sorry, as I always say. But the general rule is 2 to 3 hours away from medications with our supplements.
Okay, that's a good rule of thumb then. But yeah, I think the fact that they, that people can call if they're not sure, especially like, for example, we were just talking about the pancreatitis thing. People are getting medication from the vets, and absolutely, maybe they do want to do something, but they need to know, is it okay if I add this if he's on this medication?
That question is probably one of the top questions that we get regarding pet health and looking at supplements, because, I am a big believer that, you need to give your pet medication sometimes. It can be a matter of life or death. And,
absolutely.
There's a time and a place for medications, and there's a time and a place for natural supplements. And I always say, I do kind of snicker a little bit when I say this, but it would be nice if we could all play together nicely in the sandbox, because, it's all about us all working together to really help the animal and improve their quality of life. And so, if you do choose to give a medication to get things under control quickly, that's a good thing. And then you can introduce our supplements depending on what they are. And this is where we have, educated people that are able to help you included, of course, in that statement, because you're doing these podcasts, which I think is wonderful to help all
Thank you.
these pet parents. Well, you're more than welcome.
It's been fun. It's definitely been fun so far.
You
There's
are
lots
having
of
fun, and you can tell that you are very passionate about what you're doing.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
it has been fun. And this one was another topic that, I'm like, gosh, this is one I've always wanted to really deal with. And it was great to be able to get you to come on as well, because, when you say to someone, how do you feel about giving your pet something that its body can use? And they start to go, oh, what do you mean by that? And instead of, I'm not saying you shouldn't do your medication. Absolutely you should. And you should be going to your vet too. Absolutely you should. But hey, maybe there's something else that we can add in here that'll really, as we've talked about, boost and support and all of those things. Yeah.
And especially, when you've got people wanting to use something longer term and you don't want it to have a negative impact on their stomach or make them ill, or there's a lot of concerns about long-term use of supplements and whether or not it's safe. Short-term, not so much. We tend to get more questions about long-term use. And, our products are again based in plant-based or botanicals or herbals, however you'd like to describe it. But long-term use of our supplements, again, can be used long-term. But I do suggest a break, because I think it's important that the body kind of brings itself back into a balance. If you provide those raw materials that you find in these herbal supplements or these vitamin mineral-based supplements, they are like the building blocks. And then once your dog or your cat is going to use them, and of course the body's going to come back into a balance. We call it that homeostasis.
Yes, nice. Yeah, absolutely. And I do even the kidney tone that I'm giving the cat, I do a break on that one as well. Always do. Yeah.
Excellent. And that's what we recommend. So you're using the products properly. And, if anyone is ever concerned about it, I know they could ask you, or they can give us a call, and someone will lead them along the right path to what's best for their pet.
Is there any other cautions that pet parents should be looking at, other than some of the things that we've talked about?
I think that, it's this idea of, pet owners, think that because a supplement is natural that it's safe for all pets. But that couldn't be further from the truth. And, we do have what we call these notification numbers now on our labels. And people are going to start to see, it's going to say NN, and then it's going to have some letters and numbers beside it. And that's what we call their notification numbers. And that's basically what Health Canada gives to us. And I think this is a good thing, because it means that Health Canada has taken the formulas, they've looked at the formulas, and they've looked at the dosages, the ingredients, and the research that we give them to support the use of these particular ingredients. And they will give their stamp of approval, or they won't, or they'll ask for more information. So most of our products now are actually include these notification numbers. So you're going to see these warnings and cautions on the label, and they're not meant to scare pet owners. They're meant to be there because, again, it's all about being transparent. And we talk about that, whether we're talking about herbs coming from Asia, or whether we're looking at, this is showing the pet owner that we are trying to bring more integrity into what we do, but basically it's gone through a process. It's all about safety, efficacy, and that type of thing. So more and more of our products you're going to start to see these what we call these notification numbers, but that brings more credibility to us into what we do in the natural supplement world. But when we look at the natural ingredients, there are some herbs that are stimulating the immune system, and you had mentioned about boosting the immune system, and that's great for most pets. But when you have pets that suffer with what we call these autoimmune diseases like diabetes and other types of autoimmune conditions, and different types of anemia or cancer even, when we have to be very careful when we look at suggesting supplements that are going to be considered stimulatory, because they are they could do more damage than good when we look at the animal in question. So we still have to be careful, but that will be listed on the label, Val. That is now on the label, not to give specific supplements to an animal that suffers with an autoimmune. That will be labeled now, so that is good that is there.
Yeah, that's amazing. We are getting more people now with saying that their pets have Cushing's.
Yes, that's another one, along with pancreatitis, and we see Cushing's a lot in the equine world, and we deal with that with our equine line of supplements, but Cushing's, again, we see it in fact, my mom and dad had a Boston Terrier who was diagnosed
a lot of Bostons.
with Cushing's. Yes. We see it very much breed specific as well. But that's something, again, looking at the endocrine system and looking at that being taxed or overworked. And, all systems can be overworked. I always say it's like your car. If you don't take care of it properly, your spark plugs are going to go, your engine's not going to work as well if you don't do regular maintenance. Well, if you're not supporting your pet through a healthy nutrition or a healthy diet, that could also be lending itself to systems that may not be working as well. And age is another big factor.
Yeah, for sure. What's the difference between a DIN number and these new NN numbers?
The drug identification number is more in the human world, but we look at medications, and for our human supplements, we have NPNs, which are natural product numbers, but for the horses and the cats and dogs, we have the NNs, or the notification numbers. Lately,
there's been such a crazy rise pet acquisitions lately, and many of these pets, dogs and cats, are coming from very suspect sources. And, sometimes people do know what the start was for these puppies or kittens, and sometimes they have no idea what the start was. With all of this going on, is there something that a new owner can do for a pet's health when they're not sure that we've got this puppy, it's 10 weeks old, or we've got this kitten, we don't really know much about it, so they're kind of guessing. Is there anything they can do for a puppy or a kitten for its health going forward when they don't know what the start was right at the very beginning?
The first thing that comes into my mind when I hear this question is to take this animal to the vet, because I think that is the first way to get whatever diagnostic test needs to be done, or just a checkup. At least they know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good starting point. And then going from there, I think definitely love, and I know that sounds a little bit corny, but it's like love is definitely going to do wonders, because I think that, on pet owners, I know they have a lot of that to give. But besides that obvious, the love part of it, I think that the digestive system and immune systems really need to be targeted with regards to acquiring a pet and not knowing their health history. I think that supporting their digestive system and their immune system are very important. And I think patience is definitely something that is important, especially if they do end up adopting an animal or getting an animal that has behavioral issues, and from wherever it came from, that's something that would be on another plane altogether. But I think looking at it from a health perspective and supplements, and looking at nutrition, really getting into a good quality food base, and looking at that as a very important part of it. And feeding good quality pet foods is going to really give them a good head start, and is going to help from a preventative standpoint as well. So looking at both nutrition and supplements being part of that. In fact, what we normally recommend we do support a number of rescues, is that we normally suggest, supporting with a product like Healthy Pet, an herbal-based, echinacea-based, or vitamin mineral-based supplement, and then supporting with Probiotic 8+, and supporting their digestive system, especially if they have diarrhea or poorly formed stools. These are some of the areas that we really like to target. Looking at nutrition is really a mainstay.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that supplement-wise that you can't give to puppies or kittens?
Not really, because when we look at the age of an animal or the breed, our products are meant for all ages and all breeds. So I really can't say that there would be one supplement that we would not recommend for a puppy or a kitten.
Oh, great. Well, that's fairly helpful. That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many things out there that, with regards to this topic. I mean, I'm sure people, and it's good to know that they can contact you when they have questions, and they can certainly get the help that they need through that avenue. That's a great part of your company.
I completely agree, and we get a lot of questions, and people are calling. I would give out my number directly, and people can call my cell, or they can call the toll-free number, and then there's always going to be a number of individuals that work in the office that are highly qualified to answer these product questions.
Mm-hmm. What would they call if they needed to? What toll-free number is that?
Okay, they would call 1-800-651-3172.
Perfect. Are they able to email?
Absolutely. They can email info@omegaalpha.ca, and Omega Alpha is all one word.
Perfect. And then they can ask to speak to someone there if they have some questions.
Absolutely. In fact, the info@omegaalpha.ca email comes directly to me, so I'd be able to answer that one directly.
Even better.
Yeah.
I heard you on Val Talks Pets. Is there anything else you think that we should know with regards to, supplements for our pets or the company, or anything else you'd like to add in, or?
Well, with regards to social media, and I know a lot of people are on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, please feel free to look for us, Omega Alpha Pets, on Facebook, and we also have our Omega Alpha and our Omega Alpha Equine for those people who want to, verge into the other lines there. And then we are also on Instagram, Omega Alpha Pharma, and that's Omega_Alpha_Pharma.
All righty. Well, I think we've covered a fair bit, but wow, if there's any more questions, I'd love to be able to have you back and explore some more.
I would love to come back anytime, Val. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. It really helps me too, and it's been lovely speaking with you.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, I'm going to say take care, because you guys are doing an amazing job down there, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. And if there's anything that I need to know, I will definitely be contacting you as well.
Thank you so much, Val. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right. Thanks so much, Joanne. All right.
Thank you.
Bye for now. That was so much fun talking to Joanne Carr from Omega Alpha Pharmaceuticals, and as always, I learned so much. Joanne made it so easy to understand the role natural supplements can play in the health and well-being of our pets. I'm so glad to hear that Omega Alpha has been receiving calls and emails for advice and questions about supplements for pets. This just goes to show that pet parents are looking outside the box to enhance their pet's well-being or to deal with an issue. It's great to be able to work in tandem with our vets and have options. Companies like Omega Alpha show the quality and efficacy behind their products, and that is what a pet parent should be looking for when looking into natural supplements for their pets. And as Joanne said, there may be times when certain things shouldn't be given within a certain circumstance. So as always, we do our homework, we call and get advice, because as I say, knowing is caring. Thank you for listening to Val Talks Pets. Please remember to follow or subscribe to ensure that you never miss an episode. To really help the show, please stop by iTunes and rate and review each episode that you find interesting and helpful. And don't forget that you can also email me at val@valtalkspets.com with topics you would like me to address or with any questions you may have. Also, check out my website at valtalkspets.com and let me know what you think and what you would like to see. Thanks for caring!